While it's hard for many brand loyalists to admit, wrestling is at its best when competition is at its peak. And sometimes when one company doesn't see the value of their star, another company could provide them with the exact change of scenery that they need. So whether it's for different opponents, lack of use, or for some other reason, here are 5 wrestlers that I think need to make a promotion jump the second their contract ends. At number 5, Hook. Now, maybe I don't have the qualifications to be talking about this. I started watching AEW a couple of weeks ago. But oh my god, the amount of go-away heat that Chris Jericho had, more to come on that later. But overall, I would have thought this was a match that clearly Hook should have won. It was very much a master and a student kind of one-on-one rivalry. And usually the student overcomes the master. I know the student technically had the title, but it felt like Hook should have won this match. And right now, apparently according to AEW fans, Hook seems directionless. There have been many theories about what's next for Hook, and maybe he should take a leave of absence, come back, get a huge reaction. But honestly, if you ask me what to do with Hook after just 2 weeks of watching AEW, I would love to see Hook go to WWE, and not only just WWE, start his career in NXT and work his way to the main roster. I think he could get a really fun pop in front of the NXT crowd, and he could start some really fun feuds against guys like maybe Tony D'Angelo. Maybe you give him a couple of matches against Trick Williams. If Carmelo Hayes and them stay in NXT, which I don't expect that to happen, you could have a nice feud with him. But honestly, I'd also like to see some of the random sporadic WWE talent that moves to NXT for a temporary period of time get into some matches with him to prepare him for his inevitable main roster run. At only 24 years old, he could become the next big thing in professional wrestling. They just need to make sure they work with him in the developmental aspects properly. So I personally believe WWE can develop the best talent, especially if they work from NXT to the main roster. So I believe Hook should decide at the end of his contract to move on from AEW and move to WWE's NXT division. At number 4, Shayna Baszler. There's absolutely nobody at fault here when regards to the fall off of Shayna Baszler as WWE when they didn't decide to pull the trigger for Becky Lynch to lose to her at WrestleMania 36. Baszler was already known for her incredible work in the NXT division, and honestly, we all felt like the second she got to the main roster, she was going to be a powerhouse that was unstoppable. And then WWE decided to have her bite Becky Lynch and then spew fake blood everywhere. 2020 was just something. But even after that interesting entrance, Shayna Baszler was still booked as an absolute beast. She eliminated all 5 women in the Elimination Chamber onwards towards a match at WrestleMania 36 against Becky Lynch. Now, Becky would actually speak about this match in her book and say that she actually put in a request for Shayna Baszler to go over and win this match, but WWE denied it and allowed Becky to win, and Becky felt like this was a bad decision for her as a babyface champion because fans were starting to turn on her. But outside of that, this was the moment where I felt like WWE didn't know what to do with Shayna Baszler. And boy was I right, because after this, Shayna was never the same. She went on to win tons of tag team gold with the likes of Ronda Rousey and Nia Jax, but could never get over as a single star, and honestly, she wasn't even getting over in the tag team division as much. Shayna just never felt like this dominant force because anytime WWE booked her to the top of the mountain, they kind of forgot what they had with her. So overall, I would really like to see Shayna Baszler jump over to AEW. Maybe have her even go over to TNA and feud with Jordynne Grace. Either way, I think the Queen of Spades does need to leave WWE if she's ever going to emulate that incredible run she had in NXT. At number 3, Ricochet. This is completely personal bias, just because I love Ricochet. I think he's incredible in the ring. I understand he doesn't have the promo ability to really get over as a main roster element, at least in WWE or in their eyes, but overall I think Ricochet could be pushed to the moon, but I just don't see that happening with WWE. However, if you give him the opportunity to go to AEW, this man is going to put on clinic after clinic. And that's because WWE is very much invested in storytelling, a lot of promos, all needs to build up to one big moment where the match doesn't even need to be incredible for you to be so invested. However, AEW, if you watch Daniel Bryan versus Will Ospreay last night, you realize it doesn't matter what story we tell here. These are just 2 incredible professionals in the middle of the ring, given a 45-minute time limit and just say, go out there and put on the best match you could do. That fits Ricochet perfectly. And after just watching Will Ospreay versus Daniel Bryan, please, for the love of God, give me Ricochet versus Will Ospreay again. It's one of the only non-WWE and AEW matches I've ever seen, and oh my God, is it the best thing I've ever watched. I think one of the main reasons he stays in WWE is because his wife Samantha Irvin also works there, and clearly Ricochet has kind of fell into his role, understanding he's going to be an upper mid-carder to a low main eventer. I just really want to see the guy put on clinics of matches before the end of his career, career, and I really want to see him win some titles. Like I said, I just don't think he fits the WWE mold where it's like you got to tell this incredible storyline, where I feel like he fits the AEW mold of just go out there and put on a clinic of a match, which he can do perfectly. So yes, if it was up to me, I would put Ricochet in AEW and let him go out there and put on incredible matches left and right, and maybe inevitably make his return to WWE right before the end of his career for one last heroic run. Number 2, Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, anybody that knows me knows that Shinsuke is one of my all-time favorite wrestlers, because when he came into the WWE, I was absolutely on board. I was on the Shinsuke bandwagon, begging him to beat AJ Styles at WrestleMania. I felt like they were pushing him to the moon, and he deserved it. The Royal Rumble reaction was unbelievable. I was so ready for Shinsuke to take over the WWE brand, and then they dropped the ball on it. No pun intended. It always felt like in Vince McMahon's WWE, he never wanted to pull the trigger on Shinsuke Nakamura as the top babyface or as the top champion because of the language barrier. And as we spoke about this, WWE is very keen on important promos and getting over with the crowd. But honestly, I feel like Shinsuke was just not given the opportunity. He did really well on NXT. He's incredible in the ring. There was no reason why this man shouldn't have been a world champion at least once in WWE. Even if it was only for a couple of months, he should have been a world champion. So I believe primarily send him to AEW because he has done all he could in New Japan. So send him to AEW, let him win one of their 800 titles. I seriously don't even know the name. TNT, TBS, whatever you want to call it. Have him win one of those titles. Have him feud with like Will Ospreay. Have him feud with Bryan Danielson. Have him feud with Chris Jericho before Jericho inevitably leaves. Have him feud with anybody there. Put him at the top of the game. Give him a title and let him ride off into the sunset as a hero. And speaking of the man, number 1, Chris Jericho. Now, I don't need to mention again how recently I started watching AEW, but oh my god, I did not realize how bad the go-away heat was for Chris Jericho. My god, I haven't heard it be this bad since like the 2013 to 2016 Big Show in WWE days. But yeah, watching him last night, he did look a little bit sluggish in the ring. He obviously doesn't look like himself. Pretty sure he's like 53 years old, so yeah, I'm not shocked by that. I honestly think he should retire. I think he should be done with wrestling, but it doesn't feel like Chris Jericho is at that point where he's ready to give up wrestling. He still seems like he wants to do more, despite the fact that his priorities are all over the place. He's got Fozzy to deal with. Like I said, his age is catching up to him. He's clearly not himself in the ring, but Chris Jericho is always good at reinventing himself, which I thought that would be fine because he would get the go-away heat, but then he'd reinvent himself and people would be happy. But according to a lot of AEW fans, he has reinvented himself and it just still hasn't worked. So he's still getting that go-away heat. It's not working out for him. And honestly, the only possible move I could see this man making is making one last homecoming return to WWE to work for maybe a year or two of wrestling, put himself into some fun feuds that he maybe never had the chance to work with, get him to work with guys like Carmelo Hayes and, Trick Williams. You can give him like an NXT run for fun. Like, you could do a lot of different things with Chris Jericho. You can have him really get invested in some storylines, less about wrestling and more about putting over talent. And then I think he may take on some sort of backstage role that allows him to work backstage and help with talent development, and then also continue to work with Fozzy, his band. There's a lot that I think Chris Jericho could still do in WWE, not just as a wrestler, but as a talent enhancer. So yeah, if he were to go somewhere else, I would like to see him back in WWE for a brief period of time, just to work a little bit with the younger talent, put them over, and go from there. Now, if Vince McMahon was still in charge, I would highly doubt this could happen, because Vince McMahon and Chris Jericho, to my knowledge, didn't have a great ending to their time together in WWE, and Chris Jericho basically just said, I'm leaving and I'm going to AEW. And Vince, I don't know if it was didn't believe him or he didn't really care, whatever it was, it didn't end on great terms. But as you know, our glorious King Paul Levesque, aka Triple H, doesn't really have any personal hate towards people that he's not willing to overcome, at least to my knowledge, because he literally did it with CM Punk, which God knows how bad that heat was between the two. So yeah, if Triple H feels like this is the right move, he'll bring Chris Jericho on, but it's going to come down to mutual agreement. Does Jericho see a future for him for a year or two in WWE? Does he see a way he could help over the talent? Or does Triple H even feel like it's worth bringing in Jericho, or is he happy with the current roster? So we'll have to see where it goes from here. If Jericho were to go anywhere outside of AEW, which I feel like he has to inevitably leave, I think it should be WWE. That's just my pick. So let me know in the comments below what you all think of my list, and let me know if there's somebody, probably somebody smack in the middle of your screen right now, that you believe needs to make a company jump. Thank you all for listening. I'll catch you all soon. Peace.